Good afternoon. Welcome to our October Town Hall. I am not Matt Bean. I don't know if that's good or bad, but welcome. We will begin as we typically do with our moment of silence and just, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, the folks in Western Carolina and folks going through some terrible tragedy. If you could take a minute, keep them in mind as you have a moment of silence before we start our business. Thank you. All right, we will get started. That's our agenda. We're going to leave the majority of the time for Jordan's report. I've heard rumor you are here for in anticipation of his report, so we'll leave plenty of time for that. I did want to bring you greetings from the aforementioned Matt Bean. As you see, he's struggling this week. Did want to pass on our appreciation for the participants in the Bright Spire Olympics. As you can see, Matt rocking the purple shirt all the way from Florida. So, yes, thank you to those that have participated. Just a couple of other things that I'll mention. This is our 6-month obligatory reminder of to update your file of life. Does anybody not know what file of life, what I'm talking about when I mention file of life? Okay, so it's a Guilford County document that we keep updated. It informs emergency medical personnel of your critical information. If you need to update your form and need the form to do that, Kelly Hodges is your person. And just see her if you need to get a new blank form to get it updated. And is Ann Finch here? Happy birthday. Okay. Happy birthday. Doctor's appointment. If you see her, tell her happy birthday. I found that in Icon, so that's a good reminder of things you can find in Icon. And with that, as I said, we're going to leave the majority of the time for Jordan's update. I will just mention immediately following this town hall, we will have the lounge reveal, the worst kept secret on campus, but we will officially invite you into that space, have some light refreshments, so please do join us after this town hall. As you know, some of us will be making the trek over to Guilford to do a repeat session of town hall, so not sure how long we'll be able to stay with you, but please do go over to the lounge and see what has been changed. I think you'll like it. Okay, with that, Whitney will come give us a campus life update.
Good afternoon. My name is Whitney Ariza. I'm the Director of Campus Life, and it's good to see you all this afternoon. I'm going to be quick too. I've just got a few highlights for you. The first being on October 18th from 1:30 to 2:30 in the Guilford Living Room, we're going to do a chili cook-off like we did last year, and we're also going to have a pumpkin decorating contest. So our staff members are going to do the chili, And then we're going to have a panel of 4 resident judges, and then Nick will be, our executive chef, will be our 5th judge. So that should be a really good time. And then the pumpkins will be set up around the room. So we anticipate staff departments doing pumpkins, but we are also hoping that residents will consider entering a pumpkin. You could do it as an individual, as a hall, as a villa, whatever your choosing is, but we'd love to have a lot of pumpkins to look at that day. So mark your calendar, October 18th. And then this is the Spooky Spectacular will be on Saturday, October 26th from 3 to 5. And this is going to be a trunk or treat event. So many of you are probably used to, when you think of trick-or-treating, kids going door to door in a neighborhood to get their candy. But this is a way for kids to come, and instead of going to houses, they're going to trunks. So people decorate their car trunk, and they're able to go up and trick-or-treat from the trunk. We'll also have some tables set up. So we're looking for residents or groups of residents, maybe committees, whoever would like to participate. But we need more trunks and tables. So if you're interested in decorating a trunk or table, I've had several residents come to me and let me know they're interested. Come let me know, because we'd love to have you. This event is going to be open to residents, so all of you, and your guests and families. So feel free to invite children, grandchildren, friends. And then the staff team is going to come as well, and we'll have the staff family members here. So we'll have a really good crowd. We'll have bounce houses, face painting, games, food. We'll have a Pelican ice truck is coming. So it'll be a really good time. And we hope that you and your families will join us. We are asking if you have, if you're out and about and you see any bags of candy and you want to grab a bag of candy, you can donate that to our Spooktacular event. And you can turn that in to Paula at the front desk. Another change coming up is we've been collecting plastic lids for the past year, and we've been giving those to a Boy Scout troop who's then been melting them down and turning them into lawn furniture. We appreciate all the donations of your plastic lids, and that program is going to be wrapping up on October 31st. So if you've got a stash of lids, go ahead and get them turned in. And after October 31st, you can recycle them or do as you choose with them. We'll still be doing the prescription bottles like we have been. And just another little reminder, if you're interested in having a meal with a student from Guilford College for our Friendsgiving event, the week of Thanksgiving, we'll be looking for residents to have a meal with a Guilford College student. So if you're interested in doing that, let me know. We don't know how many students we'll have. Last year it wasn't a whole lot, but this year there could be more. So if you have a remote interest in that, let me know. So we have a trip highlight. We are still going to do our Leaf Peep to Chateau Morissette Winery. It's on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's a wine tour and tasting, and then we'll have a really nice meal at the end of that. So if you're interested in signing up for that, you can do so on CareMerge or in the sign-up book. And anybody who was signed up for the Asheville trip, we've let them know that we've canceled our Asheville trip, of course. And hopefully we can reschedule that in the coming months, next year, who knows. But our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Western North Carolina.
What's the date of this trip?
That's a good question. I didn't put the date on there. It's in October, and you can refer to Icon or your Connection. There's a big blurb in Connection that gives all of the details. I bet we could pull it up in about 2 seconds.
17th.
Looky there, October 17th. Thank you, Rick. And then I want to highlight a new program happening over on the Guilford campus. It's called Gather at Guilford. Every Tuesday at 3:30 in the Fox Concourse, they're going to be doing a program similar to what we do for the Thursdays at the lounge. So it's a time to bring a drink, an appetizer to share, and just have a social time before dinner. So many of the Guilford residents have been coming over to our Thursdays at the lounge, and I hope some of the West residents will head over to Guilford for this new social time. And then finally, we have October's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So in the month of October, on the 11th, from 7:30 to 4:30, we're going to be doing a step challenge. Many of you may remember back in the spring, we did a step challenge for Parkinson's awareness, and this is going to be very similar. We're asking you to track your steps on the new step, walking, or any piece of fitness equipment that you might use. And the sheets will be located in the fitness centers on both campuses. So we're trying to get our steps in for breast cancer awareness. And then along those same lines, we have an Encompass Well Talk on Friday, October 11th, 2 p.m. right here in the West Living Room. And we have Christine Brannick. She's the Oncology Community Outreach Manager at Cone Health, and she'll be speaking about breast cancer prevention, detection, symptoms, and of the like. All right, thank you. I'm going to turn it to Jordan.
Thank you, Whitney. Thank you, Steve. Okay, well, it's wonderful to see everybody here today. I'm so glad that you came out for this presentation. Just a reminder for those who aren't able to make it, we are recording this and it will be available on Icon. I know that, there's just folks that have things going on, like doctor's appointments on your birthday. So we will share this with anybody who's interested. I want you to know that when it comes to the budget, and I guess more specifically now, even how we present the budget, I want you to know how sensitive we are to the subject. And I've labored over this presentation. I want to make sure that you have enough information and a good explanation. And certainly we'll offer an opportunity for question and answer at the end. Whenever we enter into the budget season, as I call it, it's actually closer to the spring. I always try to remind myself of goals. What are our goals? And what's motivating us as operators of this community? Where do we need to focus? Certainly good stewardship. We are entrusted to be good stewards of the revenue that you provide to this community. At the top of our list is affordability. Folks are on fixed incomes, and inflation really constrains that every year. And so I know that that's a concern for many. And I'm always reminding myself of that, to keep folks' finances in mind, move forward sensibly and reasonably. And we also want to look at safety. We want to look at safety and security. The decisions that we make must promote, at the end of the day, safety and security. It's one of our top priorities, to create an environment where you feel safe and where our employees feel safe as well, whether that's healthcare, whether that's the working environment, whether that's the amenities that you enjoy, the amount of staff that's available to you in the event of an emergency. We must promote safety and security and the upkeep of the building as well, right? If we have a building that's crumbling around us, that's a problem. That's unsafe. Which leads us to sustainability. We always, in order to have a successful and a happy community, we must invest in sustainable practices, whether that's the supplies that we use, whether that's how we reinvest in the physical plant of our community. You look at the projects that we do to keep it up and to not let it crumble around us, right? That goes for our programs too. We always want to initiate and support programs that are sustainable, that will last, and will be successful for years to come. Ultimately, this all boils down to value, a sense of value, a sense of peace of mind. I suspect that's one of the many reasons why you moved to a community like this, and why you moved to this community, is that you're seeking value, you're seeking peace of mind. Otherwise, you'd probably stay in your own home. Is that fair to say? Okay, good. So I always like to share a little bit of what we face as a management team as we start crunching the numbers. What is this community facing? Keeping in mind that Friends Homes is not somehow magically immune to what's happening in the outside world. We face the same things that your kids are facing, that your businesses that you currently work for or used to work for are facing. The economic uncertainty applies to friends' homes. And so I just listed out some of those things. There's inflation. Now, admittedly, the inflation is not as high as 2 years ago, 3 years ago in the midst of COVID. Inflation has reduced a little bit, but it is still a reality. And so we do see that in a very real way in our food, our supplies, our taxes, our insurance. Insurance has continued to hit us hard. And it only takes a weekend like we've just experienced in Western Carolina to show us how insurance can be affected. And keep in mind, the insurance rates aren't moved only in the areas that are affected. Insurance rates and the cost is spread across the entire nation where the companies operate. And so we bear that burden here, although we were not affected. And this happens every single year. And then, of course, labor. So our local labor market, our unemployment is relatively low. And so recruiting remains a challenge. It always will. We're in a different generation. Gone are the days of pensions and loyalty. And the generation that is entering the workforce is of a different ilk, And so we must focus on training, benefits, healthcare, that means healthcare insurance as well. And the workforce expectations are higher than ever. There was a time where you put in a good 20, 30 years at a company, you'd earn that pension, and you'd retire. And that just simply is not the case anymore. Employees want more, they expect more, and they will jump ship for very little if it means that it gets them higher up the ladder. And that's just the reality. And so we face this here, and so we look for ways to reinvest in our employees and to retain them longer. It's something I think that we do well, but it is a challenge. And then there's expectations. Expectations of our residents, expectations of our staff, expectations of the outside market, folks who might be considering friends' homes for their future home. And so we reinvest. We create programs and services in response to needs and requests. And we ask our staff what they think and how we can reach them in a more effective way, again, to create value for everybody involved. Everybody involved could be considered the stakeholders. And so I'm a data person. I love data and facts. And so I went to the Department of Labor and Statistics, and I just said, where do we stand today? Well, this is directly from the Department of Labor. Soft services, wages, inflation, it's up 4%. These are janitors, landscapers, security personnel, clerical staff, up 4%. Hard services wage inflation is up 5%. These are technicians, maintenance techs, support staff. Wages and salaries, accommodations, and food services up 3.6%. This is general food service industry worker, cooks, servers, utility, bussers, dishwashers, 3.6%. The unemployment rate in Greensboro is 5.4%. It's relatively low. There's places where it's lower, but the pool here is shallower than you might think. And this is sort of fun. A $10 item in 2019 now costs $13, just about $13. A $10 wage in 2019 costs $13.23. I remember when early in my career, we paid our servers. I've always worked in senior living since I was 23 years old. I was managing senior living communities. When I first entered the workforce, we were paying servers around $7.50 to $8. If you got to $9, that was a really good wage. And I'm here to say now that we're paying servers well into the $14 range, upwards to $16 in some areas in the local market. So that just shows you how wages have grown over the years. So, I'm going to start with our census projections. As I always do every month, because census drives revenue. It ties into a lot of different things. So you see our 2024 census budget, and then the 2025 right thereafter. So you see at Guilford, we're pushing the census expectations a little bit more. And why is that? Well, we base this off of history. So for the last year, we've experienced better than budgeted census. And so we felt going into this year, we could push our budget a little bit and expect to see improvement on average with our census at Guilford. I'm happy to say that today, as we speak, our census is actually beyond that number of 90%. So this is very good. At Friends Homes West, we've been successful all year long. But we don't think that there's much more room to push that percentage of 95% much further. And that's because it takes time to renovate apartments. So somebody will vacate, then we go in, we renovate it. By the time somebody moves in, there's a couple months in between. So on average, we're looking at about 95%. In our assisted living, we remain relatively flat, but our historical average at West, you see here, Friends Homes West, it dropped a little bit, and so we felt like the right thing to do was to be conservative and go with what we've averaged at 82%. And in skilled nursing, the same holds true. We pushed a little bit more at West, we backed it down a little bit more at Guilford, and that's just based off of our history and the performance that we experienced all this year. Does that make sense so far? Still with me? It's a little warm here. We didn't mean to lull you to sleep. My father was a teacher for many years, and he said that one of the strategies he used to keep the students awake is he'd make it as cold as possible. We didn't do that today. And now our operating budget. So these are the real numbers. So our operating revenue, right here, you can see that 2024 is in blue, 2025 number is in green. We grow our operating revenue expectations a little bit, and it's the same amount, it's equal to the cost of living increase that I'm about to share with you. So our projected revenue is $39 million, and our operating expenses are $35 million. The amount that they increase is relatively similar, and that's because we anticipate expenses increasing. Therefore, the gain from operations here is relatively flat. There isn't much change. It's not that we're earning more revenue and we're reducing our expenses. It's relatively flat. Our non-operating expenses increase a little bit. A primary driver of that is increased depreciation. So we have some big projects that occurred in 2024, and so we spread out the expense of those projects over the useful life of the purchases, and so that increases that rate. And then our change in assets, we have some increased entry fee proceeds that are amortized, and it's a little bit more expected this coming year compared to last year. There's a few other things. We don't realize our dividend proceeds from our investments, but we do account for them. And so the investments have done well. And so it's reflected there in the change in our assets. Some interesting facts about our budget. We have a very generous capital expenditure plan. Capital expenditures are the big projects. I spoke earlier about reinvesting in the community. We have a budget of about $4.7 million to enact in late 2024, 2025. There's some big projects that I'll share with you a couple slides from now, some things to be excited about. But these represent infrastructure projects and improvements, always heating and cooling, and the safety type projects. An example of something that we started this year that will go into 2025 is our elevator replacement project. That's a $1.2 million project that will continue into this year. But I have a few more to share with you in just a moment. We're expecting 47 units to turn over in the coming year, but we also expect those units to be filled. And so there's a plan for about $6 million in entrance fees to be paid into our community, and that's what that number represents there. Keep in mind with the operating capital expenditures, unit renovations are included in that as well. That's a big number. That's at least $1.5 million right there, just to get the units ready for somebody to move in. Because again, there's 47 of them, at least 47 of them. That doesn't include any transfers that occur. So big number for that renovation budget. After it's all said and done, after all of our bills are paid, after everything's amortized and everything's depreciated, we have a budgeted cash flow of about $226,000. Now you figure in a $40 million budget, that's actually a very narrow cash flow. And so we have to keep that in mind, okay? Now, again, what we saw in Asheville this week is a reminder of why it's so important to have a positive margin in our cash flow. That goes to the reserves, and the reserves are there for replacement if need be. If a tornado was to rip through this community and destroy buildings, there's reserves, thank goodness. There is a positive margin. I will tell you, and I've said many months in the past, there was a time where this community did not have a margin. That was very scary times. You may not have known that, but that is the case. But I've been very transparent with you that it's good that we have this margin for emergencies, also to pay debt, and also to reinvest in our community. Our debt service coverage ratio, that's our ability to pay debt. We do have debt as a community. We make routine bullet payments on that debt, but we're planning for a budget of 2.0. We surpassed our budget this year, and that's a good thing, but we're planning on at least the ability to pay our debt 2 times over. That's what that number represents. And we're budgeting days cash on hand of at least 726 days. Okay, so if we were to stop collecting your monthly service fees today for some reason, we could continue to pay our bills and debt for 726 days. So you might be interested in our history for rate increases. What did we do in years past and how do we compare? Well, in 2022, our increase across all 3 venues, IL, AL, skilled nursing, the increase was 4%. In 2023, it shot up to 7%. Anybody know why?
Inflation.
Inflation. Anything else? COVID. COVID changed everything, right? It changed the labor market completely. Remember the Great Resignation? First there was the Great Resignation, then there was the Great Regret. Then there's just now. I don't know what we call this. It's great something, you know. But those were hard times for us as operators. 7% increase. In 2024, things improved a little bit, and our increase went down to 5.75%. And in 2025, we continue that trend. Our monthly service fee increase will be 4.5%. So we have a 3-year reduction. We'd all love it for it to be 0%, it just can't. But we are glad that the numbers are trending down. There is another adjustment, and this is really just one-off charges. So this doesn't affect everybody on a monthly basis. This only affects you if you're utilizing one of these services. And it's not a routine expense, it's an occasional expense for you. We looked at our ancillary fees. They haven't been touched in a very long time. I don't know when they were last touched, and we made a few adjustments. We did just renovate all of our guest rooms, our guest suites, and they're lovely. So we did make an adjustment in the cost to rent one of those guest rooms. So we went from $85 to $100 a night. It still includes the meals. It went up $15. There's a few little things. Some things went up 50 cents. Not a big deal. It was really just to make it a clean number. I thought it was kind of odd to charge $19.50 for something. We just make it 20 bucks flat. It's easy to account for. A lot of this stays the same. A lot of these numbers remain the same. And some of them that require staff get a little bit closer to covering the cost, the individual cost of the staff. We're still not close, and you don't have to worry about these numbers because I'm gonna mail it to you. I'm gonna send you a memo so you have your own sheet and you can have it for your own record. We really tried to be reasonable with this, but because it's been so long, we felt like we needed to adjust them slightly. So I'm just getting ahead and sharing this with you now. And like I said, you will get a memo, you will get a price sheet. You certainly can ask any questions that you might have directly to me. So 2025, what are some of our goals? What does our focus as a management team need to be? Well, we need to focus on customer service. I think that's what you expect of us, and I certainly expect it of myself and my team. Responsiveness remains key to our success. Being visible, right? We have heard loud and clear that you want us to be visible and accessible and to be timely. We should respond to you quickly. We should respond to you accurately. We should be at events. We should be communicating to you effectively. And we want to be consistent. Now, I've heard from residents that consistency remains a challenge here. We all know those areas of where consistency is a challenge. We're hearing from our residents, we're hearing from our committees, we're hearing it individually, we're hearing it collectively. What I want you to know is that I do hear you, and we will continue to focus on that. And we will seek your feedback and your input consistently as well throughout the year. And then quality. You expect quality, and so do I. That goes back to the value that we spoke about earlier. So if we're responsive and we're visible and we're timely and we're consistent in how we deliver our services, the theory is that you will have a good sense of quality. And I want to say that this applies to the services that you expect, and I'm reminded often that our employees expect this as well. So we talk about training, we talk about the environment that we create for them, the supplies that we provide them with. Our employees want us to be consistent, present, and adding value to their lives. So we did take some time this year. Turnover is a challenge. It's going to remain a challenge for some time. And we, as part of our wage philosophy, we take time to survey the local market, and we want to see where our wages stack up to our competitors. That could be hospitals, that could be other senior communities like ours and similar industries. So we do that routinely. And what we found was that we are a bit behind in certain positions, and we needed to address that. We've heard from residents, that turnover is an issue. You've seen it, you've felt it, in the quality of staff and the training that we provide. So I want you to know that we did complete that wage survey, and we did make a targeted wage adjustment, which will be effective starting in November for certain positions amongst our staff. I list them here: dining servers, cooks, utility workers, housekeepers, healthcare RNs, LPNs, and CNAs. I'll be honest with you, in many cases, these are our lowest wage earners. These are the folks that are hit the hardest by inflation. If you make $13 an hour, buying a carton of eggs is a really big deal. A half hour, working for a half hour, you have to work a half hour to get a carton of eggs, basically. And if you have any kids, you know how many eggs they eat. I have 6. We go through a carton a day, practically. So we did want to target the lowest wage earners, and we wanted to bring folks up to a generally accepted amount. So we're in the process of communicating to the staff that are affected. Not everybody gets a raise. That's not how this works. We look at everybody's wage, how long that they've worked here, and we bring them up to that level. Some people were already at that level because they worked here a long time. So we are very methodical with how we do this. I guess what I want you to know is that we are very thoughtful and very methodical in how we pay our staff. And we have a wage philosophy that encourages fairness and equality. And we want to do everything we can to keep our staff here. And we're exploring innovative partnerships because we will always lose the wage battle, right? I call it an arms race of wages. You know, hospitals can always pay more, right? So what can we do as an organization to care for our staff? Well, we can provide programs. We initiated a financial literacy course through a very respected leader in financial literacy. So all of our staff have that available to them. We are paying for that for them so they can learn how to budget properly. They can learn how to save. They can learn how to invest. We are exploring ways to improve our medical benefits. That affects not only them, but also their families. Residents have helped us in a very tangible way by creating a scholarship program. And we awarded 4 very valuable employees scholarships just a few months ago, and we plan to do that again and encourage education and loyalty through that. And then we also are investing in an employee satisfaction survey that will survey staff routinely instead of once a year. It's odd in one way if you think about it. You survey one time and then you work on that the rest of the year. We're not going to do that. We're going to survey our employees throughout the year and continually keep our finger on the pulse to find out what we need to change and what we need to address. And investing in our community. This is exciting. Something that the residents, and I'm going to target the Health and Wellness Committee, has brought up routinely to us, and we said, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. We're installing AEDs, automatic defibrillator devices, in all of our restaurants and in all of our care venues, okay? And I want to thank the Health and Wellness Committee, not only for encouraging this, but also for their patience. And I'm looking at Eleanor over there. And I think, Eleanor, didn't you start that off? You did. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think everybody will be better off as a result of that. Now that's about, I believe, last I looked, there's about 13 different devices. So that will require training, and we're expecting our staff to be the ones that respond with those devices. We don't expect you to, okay, to be clear. Living room AV equipment upgrade in West. He said, what? We're hoping to reduce that. So we're exploring our options to upgrade the AV system here. And we're really looking forward to some improvements there. I mean, we could go pretty far with that. We could be reserved. We don't have the full solution. We have some quotes and we've set aside a good amount of money for it. So we hope you enjoy. We are installing grab bars
Yay.
in all apartments.
Yay.
Yes. Yes, we have heard consistently from residents that this is a need, and I will be the first to admit that this is something we should have considered and done with the expansion. We didn't, but we heard loud and clear from you, and we will be doing that. We are also exploring options to reimburse folks who moved in during the expansion and paid for their grab bars. Okay, I have a memo almost fully drafted and ready to share with you. So there will be more communication about that. I just want you to know we heard you and we acted upon it and we've budgeted it and we're doing it the right way now. So thank you. Oh, thank you. And it was a team effort. It was a team effort, I will say. We've been communicating with the Buildings and Grounds committees at both neighborhoods, and folks have been patient. You really have, and I can't thank you enough for that. We are purchasing some new furniture at Whittier, in the Whittier units. Who's been in the Whittier units lately? Anybody seen them? There's a few hands. It's time. It's time to replace some of that furniture. And so we've worked with a designer to pick out some new furniture that's quite nice. And so we'll be upgrading some of those units with some fresh new furniture. Headboards, footboards, end tables, TVs, wall-mounted TVs, nice flat screens, and some built-ins. I think it's going to be something that we're very proud of. The Ruth Dining Room. We're refreshing the Ruth Dining Room. So it's not a full refurb. We're not blowing out kitchens and rebuilding all the, bringing in all new equipment, but we are giving it a facelift. We're going to look at the carpet, the walls, the art, the furniture that's in there, and we're also addressing the dining services in assisted living. Carly's working on that now with Matt and her team. We want to make sure that the assisted living dining experience is as close to the independent living dining experience as possible. We think there's an added value to doing so. And so we're going to make that room look really nice. It's going to take some time. I think that's more of a marathon than a sprint. We are involving residents in the process. We have hired a designer to help us with that. We'll have some focus groups. Now I know that that's over there, but that's your dining room too. So we hope that you join us on that journey as we open up with a new plan. And we're finalizing our cable TV plans. I have a memo drafted. I will tell you, I think it's okay to say, that for anybody who is currently using Spectrum for their cable, that's a lot of you. You currently have Spectrum cable service in your homes. We have renewed that contract. Okay? So your cable service will not be changing. Everything stays relatively the same. That's only for the folks using Spectrum services. That's buildings 1,000 through 5,000, right? I am this close to announcing our plan for the cottages and the villas. This close. So close. I want to tell you now. I want to. But I won't until there's ink on paper. So there's essentially an agreement in principle. But this is my style. I don't want to commit to something that I can't deliver on, okay? So for the folks who do have Spectrum, everything stays the same. You will have a different channel lineup. I've been told that there will be more channels than what you currently have, okay? I did request a channel lineup that we will distribute with the memo informing you of the Spectrum renewal, okay? Does that make sense? Okay. And look at that last bullet point there. 12-passenger electric bus has already been purchased. It's already been purchased. This is the coolest bus. It is climate controlled. It's heated. It's cooled. It can be fully enclosed or it can be open. It has a wheelchair ramp, not a lift. It has a lower profile, and so it is much easier to get into, which was one of the major challenges that we face with the current buses that we have. The current buses that we have really big stairs. You have to step up pretty high to practically crawl into them, or you have to take a lift, and you're on display as you're lifting up into the bus. So a lot of people don't use it. It's intimidating. It's scary. Some people might be embarrassed. I don't know, but we wanted to improve that. As we were master planning for the community in the future, one of the things we heard over and over from the residents is, Jordan, we would look at this as one community more if we could get in between each neighborhood easier. It's too hard right now. And so we had to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, what can we do to improve this? And so we started researching and reaching out. We identified a company called Moto Electric Vehicles. They're based out of Jacksonville, Florida. This vehicle is made in the good old US of A, okay, manufactured in Jacksonville, Florida. And I said, this all sounds good as I'm pulling pricing and looking at the specifications. This looks good, but I want to see one in person. They said, we just sold one to a community in Raleigh. So they connected us with that community. Steve, Matt, Mark Cottrell, who's in charge of transportation, and I drove down there. We rode on the bus. We talked to the staff who use it every single day. They love it. And so this is an experiment for us, but we think it's the right decision. It's being manufactured now, and it should be here around December. Don't quote me at that, because you know how manufacturing is, and the dock workers are striking right now. But this is what it looks like. What do you think? Do you like it? Isn't that cool? So it says it holds 11 plus one wheelchair. We'll see. Once you get 11 on there, I think it would be like sardines in a can. But it can carry multiple people. We will make it street legal. When it arrives here, it's not street legal. We have to register it with a VIN, and we have to get it insured. It can't be insured until it's registered with a VIN. So it'll take some time. It will be parked in one of our garages here, because in cold temperatures, it needs to be protected from the elements in order to preserve the battery. We upgraded the battery. We went with a sealed lithium-ion battery system. There's a big upgrade, but it requires little to no maintenance as a result, and it lasts much longer. It's low to the ground. There is a wheelchair ramp. That's the ramp. It simply folds down, and you can be assisted to go right up there with a walker or a wheelchair. So that's just something to look forward to. I've already signed the purchase order. It's in the works. 3-year warranty, in case you're wondering. So just a final thought. I routinely go back to our mission statement. I don't know how many people do that here, but I would remind folks that it's a worthwhile activity to do it. We're guided by Quaker values, and we offer a life-planned community that offers a sense of wholeness, wellness, purpose, and security at a fair cost, so that each resident may live a fulfilling life. We believe that this budget allows us to achieve the mission of Friends Homes. We are thankful for the residents and staff who contribute daily to the success of our community. We believe, the future is bright, and we look forward to a successful year together. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I've heard a couple of you mention Icon. Is that a new name for CareMerge?
That is such a great question. Thank you. I've asked the same thing because they started using the term icon. I said, what's icon? I think of a copier. That's like a copy machine. Icon is the new name for CareMerge. Yeah, so you're going to hear us using that term. And, perhaps for a while we need to say Icon, formerly CareMerge. But yeah, there's a lot of people here now that know Icon is the new CareMerge. Great. Thank you. Well, we didn't change it. They changed it. There was a merger, I believe, within that company, and so they rebranded. So we didn't really have much of a choice, and I think what you'll see is the Icon name in the actual application, so it needed to be done. And this is why we need a new sound system.
The Health and Wellness Committee, since March, has been requesting clarity about charges in the clinic. And we've consistently been told that we're working on it. And at our last meeting, we looked at a document that is put out as part of the orientation that indicated the majority of services are at no cost to residents. But there are some that say there may be an additional charge. And I was really surprised to see up here that in 2024, there's a $15 per, is it half hour? $15 per 15 minutes, something like that, in 2024, and it will be the same as 2025. And I'm just really stunned because we've been trying to get that information. I understand it doesn't apply to everything, but we still don't know what it does apply to.
Yeah.
So I'm asking for that clarity. And
Yeah.
hopefully it won't take 3 years.
Well, I would say that it won't take 3 years. It's tough with medical stuff because there's so many nuances, right? So we wanted to put something on there, but it's kind of interesting. When I look at what we actually charged in the clinic all last year, it was next to nothing. It was negligible. I mean, it was just the reality of what we charge is it's so insignificant, and you're looking for something definitive. You want something definitive. I understand that. There's just some things that are a little bit gray. But I can tell you, I heard some chuckles when you said we're working on it. The reality is it's very gray. And so we have to make these decisions, and as you mentioned, we are working with the Health and Wellness Committee. We did produce a lot of what you were requesting at the last meeting. We'll continue to do that. And what I put up here is not set in stone. So if we feel like we need to get more granular than that, we can. But I think what I want to avoid, I want to keep it one page, and I want to have something up there, but there is discretion. There is discretion from the nurse. So, and ultimately, I don't want to charge you for anything I don't need to charge you for. So that's why there is a little bit gray. I know you want everything, folks want everything out there. The reality is we barely charge at all for nursing services. But I do hear you. I think we need to take this to the committee, and we need to finalize our approach in the committee. We won't settle that here.
Could you tell us if blood pressure checks will still be free?
Yes.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
But if you come and if you say, I need 3 blood pressure checks a day for the next 2 weeks, and I need you to report back to my doctor and provide documentation, that might be something else, right? So I prefer not to operate in hypotheticals. I prefer when you come to us with a service and you say, this is what I need, and we make a decision, and we agree on it, and we're reasonable. When I say we, I mean what we charge you is reasonable, and you feel okay about it.
You indicated that residents in the cottages will be reimbursed for the grab bars. Some of us may have grab bars only in the shower because of the extravagant cost that they charge to put them in, but we don't have them at toilets or the bathtub, for example. Is that going to be installed, or is it only the reimbursement?
I appreciate you bringing that question up, and it will be addressed in my memo to you. The way we're going to manage this is we're going to make it upon request, so you will have to reach out to us if you are interested in having grab bars. We've basically established standard locations in the restroom. We're not putting grab bars throughout your house, right? The most logical location is by your commode, if it can fit there, and in your shower. But there's so many different nuances to every apartment, different configurations, that we really have to look at your space and make a decision then. But again, we want to be reasonable with this. Now, there's people who moved into an apartment that already had grab bars. We are not reimbursing you for those. You inherited those. This is for the folks that moved in, say, in the expansion, and they renovated the apartment. They said, we want them here and here. You know, we're going to work with you on that. We haven't determined the amount that we're reimbursing. We have a finite amount of money to work with to make this happen, but we really want to make sure that everybody's satisfied with how we end up. So I just ask for patience and grace as you've given us in the past, and we are going to get this done. And I don't see this, again, you'll hear me say this, I don't see this as a sprint. This is going to take time because we're going to self-manage this. To keep costs down, it most likely will be our staff that does it. So it's going to take some time, okay?
Thank you. I'm concerned about one thing, but I'm also happy to understand that we now have an electric bus. And that is good thinking on our part for the climate change issues. But I am also concerned that we only have one location that has charging capabilities for EV vehicles. And that's right out back here. There's 2 places that they can charge cars. I would like to see someone start considering to put EV charging capabilities in each one of the villas in a basement.
I think we would have to prove need before we did that. We're not against that at all. We have 2 charging locations actually. Actually, we have 3. So there's 2 at Guilford, 2 different locations at Guilford, and there's 1 here. And I can tell you, I park by those locations often. I have not seen ever in a year a time where both were taken for charging. So we really do, again, we want to be methodical, we want to be thoughtful with how we react to certain things. If we can prove need, then we certainly can do that. It's really not that much to do it, but what we don't want to do is just do it because. But we want to be prepared for the future. We'll see, we potentially will see more electric vehicles. So I think that's something we need to monitor for now. But I do hear you. There may be a need in the future to add more. Where we add them remains to be seen. Okay? But we want to do the right thing.
When the guest rooms were redone, they put the dinkiest little grab bar in the shower, maybe a foot long. Is there any plan on putting a better grab bar in there? Because sometimes residents have to use the guest rooms.
Well, I'll be transparent and say I didn't realize that was an issue. Thank you for bringing that up.
The increase is 4.5%. Spectrum stays at $50 a month. But I think I saw in the small print on the last line that a landline will cost $20. So instead of having 50 for Spectrum and our telephone, it's really going to be 70. Is that correct?
That does not change. That's been the case. That's for folks who choose to have a landline that moved in after July of 2023. So that remains the same. No changes have been made to that. So you did not move in after 2023, did you? In July of 2023. That's why your fees your system is not changing. Yeah. Yep. And those folks that did move in after that chose to have a landline, they should be aware of that. Now, things get forgotten. I'm certain of that. But again, if you moved in before that, it's not an issue. We're in the process, actually, of auditing those folks who did move in July of 2023 and beyond to cross-compare if we are charging them or not. And we want to make sure that we are. We do need to if they have a landline telephone that we provide.
Thanks. I know that we have, I don't know how many buses we have currently. I don't know what your plans are for those buses, but do you think we could get a good trade-in and maybe get one of those Greyhound buses that look like a little bit better than the school buses we have to ride in on trips?
If we traded in the buses that we have, we'd probably get about $10,000. If we purchased a Greyhound, we'd probably need another $400,000.
Really?
They're not cheap. They're not cheap at all. It would make more sense to rent a Greyhound. And again, that's one of those things where I don't know the price, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's $400,000. But I know what one of the ones that we have costs, and I know what the one that I just bought costs, and it's a lot. The amount of trips that we take that would require a 50-passenger Greyhound, I think is not enough to justify a purchase. There may be a scenario where if we're going to fill a Greyhound or get close to it, where we rent one. And of course that cost would be passed on to those who travel on it. But that I think makes a little bit more sense. Now if we find ourselves doing that a lot, and we do the cost benefit analysis and we say this makes sense, certainly we'll do that. I don't think we're there yet. I hope we can fill a Greyhound with the events that we do. That would be amazing. It really would. Are there any other questions? Do you feel like you have a better understanding of this whole situation? Yes. Good, because I'm going to do it all again over at Guilford, and I need to know. I think this will be the last question or comment.
When is that 4.5% going to go into effect?
It's going to go into effect January 1st. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you all. Wonderful questions. Thank you for sitting through my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions. You can always stop by the office, email me, call me. We're going to head over to Guilford and do it all over again. So thank you all.